Every life has a soundtrack. Join me as we invite guests to share their journey through music, one song at a time. 10 moments, 10 memories. I'm your host, Sean, and welcome to 10 Tracks.
Are you ready?
Welcome to 10 Tracks. My guest today is Don Rodriguez. Don's a music producer and the founder of the I&I Music Studio, a recording studio, record label, and music publishing dedicated to empowering independent artists. Don's created a new record contract where the artists own their masters and their publishing, and the label collects points. A complete 180 on how music industry has been operating for the last 70 years. Don, welcome to 10 Tracks. There's a lot we're going to have to get into, but tell me first, where are you in the world?
I am just outside the city of Las Vegas, state of Nevada, United States of America.
Now, if for those who can't see it, just listening, Don's wearing a hat with a big H on it, a baseball cap, which I think I understand is the Houston Astros, if I'm correct.
That's correct. Yeah, I usually wear that. I have a variety of this style of cap in different colors. It's something I've been wearing for quite a few years. I was born and raised in Houston,
That's
so you'll see my affinity for the Houston teams. If there's a major sports team, I'm a fan. So I'm a Rockets fan. I'm an Astros fan. I'm a Texans fan. I grew up an Oilers fan. And they have a soccer team, but I don't really follow that. I don't follow football too well, but they do have one that's very, very good football team as well. So yeah, I'm from Houston, born and raised, and I moved to Las Vegas in 1997 in a one-way U-Haul. Um, it- yeah, my tenure in Houston had come to an end, and interestingly enough, I had moved right out of high school. I had moved with my best friend to Denver, Colorado, and we got jobs in construction. And I'm a high school dropout, so I felt like that was the only thing I could do at the time. And so we took off to Colorado to work construction, but man, it was way too cold for me. We
I
were
was
on
going to
the job
say,
site one day, and I felt someone hit my hard hat, which is how you communicate in construction sometimes. If it's loud, you'll tap someone on their hard hat. And so I felt someone tapping me on my hard hat, and I turned around to see who it was. No one was there, and I was confused. And the next thing was a stump on my shoulder, and the snow was coming down in pre-made snowballs. I mean, the size of donut holes. And I thought, man, that's enough for me. I can't take this cold. So I was in Denver for a year right out of high school. Then I moved back to Houston. But then within a few months, I could see that it wasn't the place for me. And I was working with a company that had multiple divisions and offices around the country. And I put in for a transfer. And back in those days, only our office manager had email. Only two people in the office had email. Email was brand new. This is 1997. And it was the main boss of the office and our office manager. And so I would go in, I put in for a transfer, and she'd send out emails. And every morning I check in with her, and I'd say, anyone respond? And the first one to respond, actually, they responded on the same day, was the Seattle office and the Las Vegas office. And right away, this is 1997, I'm into music. So I'm thinking, Seattle, I want to go to Seattle. Like, give me a one-way ticket to Seattle, no problem. So that's what I told her. She responded to the Seattle office people, and they didn't respond. And so she sent a follow up a couple of days later, and they didn't respond again. One morning I checked in. I said, "Any response from Seattle?" She says, "No, but Las Vegas emails every day asking if you're interested." So following, I mean, that week, just as the universe would make it happen, that week, some chaos happened with my family and friends. And I went in on Monday morning and I said, schedule an interview with Las Vegas. I'll get out there. And the rest is history. I moved here in a one-way U-Haul at 22 years old, single, didn't know anyone in the state of Nevada or any surrounding states. And that's the way I wanted it.
wow, that's an incredible story. It
Thank
does
you.
sound like it was meant to be. Not Seattle and going to. Um, it's definitely drier in Vegas than it than it is in Seattle for sure. Um, so how did you get into music and producing, recording, and creating your record label and everything?
Well, I like to say I was born singing and dancing, and the music playlist, the 10 tracks that I've come to put together for you today is a story about that and really how I came to music. But interestingly enough, I consider it a huge blessing not to have gone to Seattle because knowing me at the time and who I was and the aggressive person that I was at the time, yeah, the music scene and all that grunge thing going on in the late 90s, Seattle most definitely probably would have killed me. So I appreciate that I was sent to Las Vegas just in a different direction. And it might sound well, Las Vegas sounds, more dangerous than Seattle, but as it turned out, it just happened to fit me well. And yeah, definitely much warmer. I've gotten used to the warm, although I can tell you now, I've been here 28 years and the summers are finally getting to me. And I've been in construction and real estate development all those years. So the music is new. And so music has always been a part of my life. I started taking piano lessons as a young child. My father is a musician, so I'm a second generation musician and very accomplished. He plays the guitar, the piano, the bass, the accordion, anything with strings or keys, he plays very, very well. Intuitively, he plays by ear. He does not read music, nor do I. I play by ear as well. And so we've always been into music, and my house grew up with lots of music. And my father's story is one where he was based on marriage and kids. He was kind of forced to put away his instruments and his love of performing. And then that kind of put, um, that bug was put into me and my sister. I have an older sister and an older brother, and all three of us love music. My sister and I, though, are definitely the ones who caught this musical bug. My brother's a great dancer, and so it was in me since I can remember. There's never been a time where I haven't been playing music or singing. And I'll fast forward to some very recent events. Within the last 10 years, I was performing as I got back into music in my personal life as a hobby. I was performing in a community choir and music group and having a great time. And one season, we're there getting ready for our concert, and lovely people here in the town of Boulder City, where I live, just outside of Las Vegas. And I'm just there with the tune in my head, and I've never seen this woman before. I've never seen her since. But she sat next to me and she said, "You always have a song in your head." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And for some reason, that just resonated with me and clanked around in my head for about a week. And so I got to the point where I asked my wife, I said, "Do you have music playing in your head?" I'm already past 40 years old at this point. It's a pretty strange question to ask, you might think, but my wife says, "What do you mean music?" I'm like, "Just music, just music, just sometimes a tune that sometimes your own music, sometimes melodies, sometimes harmonies, horns, anything at all." She's like, "No. I mean, if I think of a song, if I hear a song, I'll sing a song." She's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You don't have a soundtrack playing to your life?" She says, "No, not at all." I said, "Wow, that's just crazy." And it was at that moment that I knew that I was supposed to make music.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I think we might have to have an intervention with your wife because there's got to be some song rolling around occasionally that's kind of in the back of her mind, even if she doesn't sing it out loud or hum it. There's got to be a song somewhere that's as she's doing things. So we might have
Yeah.
to work with that.
She loves music. She loves music. She's a big Chris Stapleton fan. She's a big fan of mine. The very first song I ever wrote is a song called Still Loving You, which I wrote for her, and
Okay.
hasn't been released yet. I'm working on it now. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I need to be less of. But but yeah, you know, in the music I speak of I've come to learn what it is, you know, and I'll still a term that I learned that I heard from Lenny Kravitz in an interview that he did, and he called them downloads. And this is where a song comes to you completely finished, lyrics, harmonies, melodies, everything. And the song I'm going to get to at the end of my 10 tracks today is my song, my first release. And it was a download. It came to me 2 o'clock in the morning. I came out of bed, walked over to my piano and started playing and singing it, as simple as it had always been there. One
Wow.
minute the song was never ever.
Let's jump into your first track here. This is from Mozart. It's his piano sonata number 11, which I guess is called the Rondo alla Turca.
Yeah. So as I said, yes, sorry, I hate to say yeah. I'm always jumping on my kids. So if I say yeah, forgive me. My kids have rubbed off on me, and I've been trying to get yeah out of their vocabulary ever since they were kids coming home from school, wherever they picked it up. So I apologize. Yes, this first song by Mozart is a piano piece, and I'm listening to it in my ear right now. And I'm going to tell you, of course, I'm sure everybody says this, but getting my list down to 10 tracks was very difficult. But I wanted
Wow.
something that represented the very, very early years of my music, and the first three songs do that. This one is a piece that I tried to learn as a child, a simplified version. And I remember my piano teacher teaching me this song. And I started piano lessons probably at about 5 years old and went to about 9. So got about 4 solid years of piano lessons. And the foundation that I got in those 4 years has stuck with me my entire life. I don't read sheet music. I don't play that way. I play by ear. But the foundation that my teacher gave me was crucially important to writing music today and helping other artists write their music.
Yeah.
This one here is so special to me because my teacher taught me that it was a conversation. And as I look back now, just to see what Mozart was doing, what he was bringing to his world at the time. So this song here is a woman, and when we're in the higher notes, it's her speaking, and of course, you know, she's jabbering on and on and on and on and on, which is pretty funny in its own little universe. But then the man comes in, and he's abrupt, and he's down over here in the other keys, and he's setting this, you know, this is my castle, this is how it's going to be, woman. And she comes back with just the most delicate responses, and she has solid arguments, and she gets back into it again. And the second time the lower keys come back in, the man is more open, and you can hear that if you listen to the song. And then in her final phrasing, she comes back with lots of music, and they come in together, and you hear the two pieces come together toward the end of the song, and it falls into rejoice. And the reason this one is so important is because, like, to think that Mozart was sending that message in his time, that like listening, being open, compromising, finding joy in your relationship rather than just being a man who's like, you know, this is the way it's going to be, woman, which I can't even imagine what it was like in those times, you know. What was that, 17th century?
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I'm very, very impressed with that. And so I wanted to point that out, the genius behind that, the importance of it, to have spoken. And you might think, well, he wasn't really saying that, but it's untrue because music is the language of the soul. So whether you hear what I just heard or not, you've always heard what I just told you. And this was the genius of it. This was the magic of his music was that's what he was speaking. And maybe no one discussed it in Mozart's time. But look where we are now in the progress of women throughout history and time. And I would argue that Mozart certainly had his part in it with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one, in addition to that, of course, it's by Mozart and it's technically very difficult to play. And so this was an important song to put down, especially for my piano teachers, because I had multiple, but for them to, you know, bestow on me that type of interpretation as a young boy, I find even now so many people pass up the meaning of music, the depth of music. And again, I don't worry about it too much because, like I said, I'm a firm believer that music is the language of the soul. Whether you hear what I hear or not, your soul does. It's a language that's just on a different level. It's stored in a different part of the brain. It's
Yeah.
why artists like Glenn Campbell can suffer Alzheimer's and forget everyone's name, including his family's, but still play his songs. And that's because music is stored with language.
Yeah.
It's a form of communication, not just a form of entertainment, although it feels like it's just entertainment now. I mean, and if you follow the pop world, it can be. But I'm in the indie world, and so I'm dealing with people who are 100% of the time processing emotions and life experiences through their music. It's an expression. Same as painting, same as swimming, for some people, yeah, as you said in the beginning, everybody has their thing. Music is an outlet, and among many things, it's an outlet.
I think when you have marketing people and possibly executives who are looking at bottom lines and budgets and profits, they are not the right people that should be making the music or producing the music or supporting artists, because then they're just looking at, okay, this was a great song that somebody made and it has hard, it was popular, but then we need to make five more versions of that because it's sold and now we're going to make replicas. And that's eventually, I think people, you can con them once or twice, but after a while they wise up and they realize what's the real stuff and what's just kind of sugar coated or bubblegum.
And if I'm being honest, I think that's really the birth and the necessity of AI in music. It's not by us, the artists.
Hmm.
I heard someone say the other day in an interview, an Instagram feed came across, and a label executive was stating, I don't know of a single label out there or studio that is not using AI to develop melodies and chord progressions. And I was upset. I said, hey, mother trucker, this studio right here, we're powered by Chat GPT. I say that proudly because I use them as an executive assistant. And so we're able to learn things quickly in this studio and strategize and do that. But we do not use AI for music production at all, not even in the slightest. And I'm proud of saying that. But the reason I think that it's becoming prevalent is not because of us, the artists, the writers. It is because of the big labels. Precisely what you said. They have fed us what I would say is the equivalent of boxed cold cereal for so long.
Hmm.
And the population is booming, and the labels are basically saying we need more cereal. They're going to AI because AI can develop just the cookie cutter stuff we've gotten used to listening to. But it's not because we need that music. It's not because we, the artist or the songwriter, need help with AI. We absolutely don't. It's because the labels need to churn out more of this, mumbo jumbo music. And so they need the AI. We don't need the AI. And that's what I think is happening. And we'll see. I mean, there's some lawsuits going on right now. I think one was just settled yesterday. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but we'll see if it ended up being a battle or was the settlement a marriage between a label and an AI company. Was
Yeah.
the question of the label questioning AI of like, hey, we don't want you generating music and learning from our artists? Or was the battle, as we will find out in the very near future, really of like, hey, if you're not going to do it for us, you can't do it at all. You know what I mean? We'll find
Yeah.
out.
It's a very interesting world we're in right now.
Well,
Is the least
absolutely.
I can say.
And I'm glad to be in it. And, I feel so blessed and so uniquely qualified to have the story that I have and just to come up the way that I did in construction, as odd as that might sound, to be here now with the resources that I have and the studio that I've built under my own nose, just out of my own passion, which is now, I'm able to share it with others. I feel very, very blessed to be in this spot, in the music industry. I have a new contract that, as you stated in your intro, takes the industry standard and does it a 180, where the artist owns their masters and their publishing, and the label collects the points. And I'm sure any label executive that just heard me say that laughs because they're like, we're not going to see this guy ever again. In about a year, this guy's going to be gone because labels that try this aren't successful because the model is difficult. It's not that the label was doing nothing. It's not that the studio doesn't cost money. It absolutely does. So if the label and the studio is going to collect the points, the model struggles. I'll be honest. I'm a 20-year entrepreneur. I haven't collected a paycheck in a long time. So I understand business. I understand this model. And I just developed a little different. And I feel the problem was always the label riding on the coattails of the artist and their music. There was only one product that generated any money for the label or the artist or anyone, and that was the music. And that's what the label needs to change. The label needs to do a little bit of its own work. But I'm going
Yeah.
to show you how it's done here.
Don, what does it mean, just for people listening who aren't that familiar with this, and to be honest, I don't know if I am, to collect points?
Oh, that's a great question. It's one of my favorite ones to answer. Um,
Okay.
I'm going to take this cell phone here, and let's say this cell phone is your song, and 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 it produces $100 bill every day. Every day, $100 bill spits out of this phone, and I'm the owner of the phone. Now, I don't want to sell the phone because it has $100 coming out of it. But let's say I need $10,000 today, and I don't have it. I gotta wait 100 days to get my $10,000. So what I would say to you is I'd say, hey, I got this phone that spits out $100. I don't have $100 to wait. I need the money now. The first thing you're gonna say, oh, I'll buy the phone from you. Oh, no, no, no. I don't want to sell you the phone. That would be dumb. It's laying golden eggs here. There's $100 bill coming out every time. Why don't I give you points? And what points is, points is a percentage of the yield of the product, not a percentage of ownership of the product. So a points agreement says that I will give you 20 points on the phone and the yield of the phone. And so
Okay.
it's spitting out $100 bill, which means I'm going to give you $20 a day. So you'll give me the $10,000 now with the points deal, but a points deal may be in perpetuity, which means you're going to get 20 for this loan, for this transaction. You need the money now, right? So the value that I'm going to get back is that I'm going to get this $20 bill all the time. And that's what points is. It is a percentage of the yield of a product, not a percentage of the product itself. So what that means is I can still, if I need to, sell this to someone else, or I can sell other points to other people, and I can sell another 20 points somewhere else. Do you see what I mean? So points
Is this
a
what
percentage of the yield. Sorry, go ahead.
no, sorry. I was gonna just jump in. Is this kind of how producers get when an artist, if they produce an artist album and they would get points off of that album that they produced? So if
Uh,
I don't know if the album, like, I mean, I wouldn't use Quincy Jones because I think he's probably way more interlinked into the writing and everything else. But if you have a standard kind of producer, the album might, I don't know, go platinum. They get a point because they were the producer of that album.
Correct. So
Okay.
you described it exactly how it is. And in the industry, the document that dictates those splits is called a split sheet, and is exactly as it sounds. It's a document that lists everyone who was involved in writing the song or a component of the song. Producers usually get points as a way of getting paid. Sometimes a producer, let's say I want to work with a specific producer that's hot right now, or a DJ. I'm going to give them a call. The first thing we're going to negotiate is some points on the song, right? If he or she's going to be involved, then they're going to want a cut of what they're going to be involved in. So you'll find that with other artists too that are featured in your song, right? If you want to work with not just a producer, but another vocalist,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll either share the song, they'll get writing credits, or they'll get points. And so the split sheet is what dictates that. Sometimes writers do get a percentage of the song. In fact, almost all the time right now in the record industry, a mainstream artist, if I were to write a song for a mainstream artist, they will get a writing credit on the song. That'll come in the negotiation between their studio, their label, and me. So if I write a song and they hear it and they say, hey, Don, well, I really like that song. We want to cut it. That's an industry term for we want to record the song that you wrote. We want to cut that on our next album. Okay, sounds great. Let's negotiate, writing credits, points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
Yeah.
points is important because remember this $100 bill that's coming out, it's not always going to be $100 bill. And in the music industry, when we have our single release, it's spitting out $1,000 bill. And then it starts to spit out $100 bills, right? And then it starts to go down because the industry is much like trading on the stock market. Singles are your day trading, and that generates revenue in the immediate future. And
Mm-hmm.
then publishing, which is your compositions, which is what we buy and sell behind the scenes after the music is done. That is your long-term revenue, right? Because think about it. Once a song is out there, it's out there forever. There's not a time where it's going to expire like a food product. And so the opportunity to earn revenue from a song lasts for 100 years. That's how long our copyright in the United States lasts. And so, case in point, I'm a little long-winded, but just to draw this to a close so the audience understands how this works. Case in point, Dolly Parton in 1975 or 77 in that time wrote a song called I Will Always Love You. Elvis wanted this song and made a sizable offer to buy it from her. And he wanted, Elvis and his people wanted to buy it outright and say, we're going to take the whole song, writing credit and all. We're going to get a one-time $1 million and we'll be done. Dolly said, no, I don't like that deal. My songs are my songs. And, if you want to license it, which is a different thing, my permission for you to record it, that's one conversation. And Elvis, they said, oh, we'll pass. Good luck, little girl. Dolly was young at the time. Well, 15 years later, another group comes along, Whitney Houston, and they want to use, it wasn't even Whitney's people, it was actually Hollywood. They want to use the song because they have a movie called The Bodyguard, and Whitney Houston needs a killer song to sing, and we think we can work with that. Dolly Parton, if I'm not mistaken, because she told Elvis to go pound sand for a minute, ended up making about $200 million plus on that one song. So that's why that's your long term. These are your safe stocks, your S&P 500. That's what publishing is. So if you are, into stock trading and stuff, you can think of the music industry like that. Your singles are what we do on a daily basis, what we trade on a daily basis, and publishing is what we trade on the long term.
Yeah. Now, is it, do you have to get permission from the artist if you want to cover their song and make a version of it yourself?
Yes. If the song is properly copyrighted, yes, and
Okay.
registered with the PROs, which is the performing rights organizations. I'm a member of BMI. BMI and ASCAP are the two largest in the world.
Yeah.
In the United States, of course, we have Sound Exchange too, which is a PRO for radio and other streaming type of platforms, or what they call non-interactive play. And so those are the two main registers you want to get in the United States. Sound Exchange, 100%, all artists need to register their music with Sound Exchange. and then BMI or ASCAP, or there's a few others. I'm not sure of the other two organizations, see something. But anyway, if you get your music copyrighted through your government here, it's the United States Copyright Office, patent USTPO. I think that's Trademark and Patent Office. The copyright division is under the USTPO, and you get your music copyrighted. There's two forms of copyright. The first is a sound recording. The second is a creative work. Think of the first as soon as you have a sound recording of your song, that is what you're copyrighting. It is a copyright of the audio file. And then your creative work is the composition, the sheet music for your piece. Once you have both of those pieces, your music is perfected and it is able to be traded on the music floor, if you will.
Okay. So, for instance, if, I don't know, a bunch of speed metal bands like Slayer, they
Mhm.
decide they want to do an album of um, soul songs, but make a speed metal version of it. So take, I don't know, Prince. They want to take a Prince song that's Purple Rain, and they want to make a speed metal version of it. They still have to get permission from Prince if they want to publish that, and even though they're not changing the lyrics, they're not changing the melody, they're just making a sped up version of it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's not a good example, but I didn't realize that if an artist plays live a song by somebody else, they can do that legally without having to ask permission if they want to play a song live. But if I'm correct, but if they want to like record the song and publish it so it could be played on the radio, they need permission for it.
Yes, generally. So let me give you the short answer to that. If you want to get paid for that music, then yes. Right now, you can cover live or you can cover digitally on music anyone's song. And all of the download money and streaming money for that song
Goes to
will go
them.
to that artist. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's the difference. Yeah, I got you. Okay.
That's the major difference. So if you want to say, hey, we've got a new version of this, like Stained doing a cover of Darkness song. I forget what that was called, but anyway, any of those covers, if you want to get paid for it, then yes, you need the studio or the label's permission. Prince is a perfect example. I'm glad you brought up Prince because he's passed away, and so his catalog, if I'm not mistaken, is most likely now owned by Disney, and I only assume that because I saw Disney using it in a bunch of stuff a couple of weeks ago. So typically, those major publishing companies use their own in-house catalog. Now I'm getting into the technicalities of it, but yes, I would need to go to Disney and I'd say, hey, I'd like to cover a Prince song in this fashion, and I'd like to collect the royalties that are going to come from it. And then
Yeah.
that's when they're going to say, well, if you want to collect some money, you can cover Prince all day long. As a matter of fact, we welcome you to. But if you want to
Right.
get paid for it, now that's a different. Because if
Totally.
I
Okay.
cover and I do a great job, let's when Prince covered um, "My Guitar Gently Weeps" by John Lennon, he did that at the Grammys, I think, in the '90s. Um, that repopularized that song all over again. Prince didn't make any money. I mean, he
No.
didn't need any money, but that's how it works.
Yeah. Let's jump into track two. This is the Bee Gees, Tragedy.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I forgot we're talking about songs. You're right. You're right. This is a great podcast. I love discussion. Yeah, the Bee Gees. Okay, so let me just start by saying that I believe, oh man, tragedy here. Pardon me. Loving you, loving you. See, you're gonna get me singing along too. Um, so this song here is another song that comes from very, very early childhood days. So I was born in 75, and my sister is 9 years older than me. And so, as a young child, some of my very, very first memories are me going into her room while she would go off to work or doing her things or off at school, and I would play her 8 tracks. This was a very difficult, they're all difficult to narrow down into 10, but I wanted a song that spoke about my early influences in music and what you can expect to hear from this studio in the future and my music in particularly, which I'm just getting rolling now. And what I love about this song is, in my opinion, the Bee Gees are just one of the most underrated bands of all time. Their musicality is off the charts. And in this song in particularly, there is so much going on. And nowadays, I feel that we've gotten so bland with our music that, people, they're not used to hearing a lot of sound, multiple harmonies, over and under a melody. And the Bee Gees did that. And other bands of the same time, the same era, Chicago, again, this was a tough one to remember the 8 tracks that I would play in my sister's room, while she wasn't home. And this one was a tough one, but Chicago is another one of those bands. They had so much music in a single song. And you take Tragedy, for example, or a Chicago song, and you'll find multiple harmonies in there. There's at least 3 songs in Tragedy that you could take out. And a producer nowadays might tell, Andy Gibb, whoa, 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 whoa. You got this harmony going, you got this melody, and then you come in with this other harmony, and the bridge does another thing. Hey, man, that's at least 3 or 4 different songs that we can make. Let's parse them out. Let's build a song around this. Let's build a song around that, and let's build a song around this. And that's what's happening in today's music. And I picked Tragedy because it is a perfect example that those guys would come in with 3 different sounds, 4 different sounds in one song and not afraid. And then the next song would do it all over again. And just the absolute creativity that it takes, all of these harmonies and sounds is impressive. And to me, like I said, the Bee Gees are so underrated for this. They probably did it as good or better than any band I heard. So much sound. And if you follow their career, even into their late stuff, they threw a lot of different sound. And so I do the same thing. There's a lot of layers to my song, to my music. I've already been told in the demos that are going out there, hey, I don't know what to listen to. That's fine. I'm not going to change me because I think that the world deserves that amount of music again. Right now, the music that's coming out of the United States has one melody thing going to it. If we're lucky, we get a bass line that sounds harmonious, but usually it's just a root bass line. Musicians know what I'm talking about when I say that. So, but we're going to change that, and we're just going to throw in more sound because we can. When we get to the end of the song, there's a song that I wrote for Ram Dass, a guru who passed, and that was a hard one not to put in there. One of my songs, hard one not to put in there. I went with The Dream of Love because it's my first, and the story that's a little better that I want to talk about today. But we're gonna do just that. Lots of harmony, lots of melody, lot coming at you.
Yeah. This tragedy is from 1979. It definitely is a powerhouse, in terms of what it's doing. I would probably say bands like ABBA, could create songs on the same
Yes.
vein that had that in. And why should they, shorten it? Like, if this is a power, make it. Like, this is what you want. When you think of these songs on your playlist of songs that are just fun or just get you that motivation, you don't want a song that's like, oh, it's motivated me in the beginning and then it kind of flopped, because they thought it was to more just this. And then, so I'm all for that. Having, if you're taking the music and saying this is what I feel and I'm inspired by people like this, then to me that's actually more important than, oh, I should probably be kind of writing what the contemporaries are doing today because that might get some radio play or it might get people to consider me. It's I think there's a lot of artists who follow that same trend, and it's a shame because they're not following their heart. And again, I feel like you have to stay true to yourself. Write the music for you, and people will appreciate it. They will make the connection. I think they're smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. And it's not like you have to make something that they are expecting.
Yeah, I recommend that 100% of the time. Make your own music. Don't listen to what other people are saying. But at the same time, I'm a producer. And the pushback I'm getting from young artists is, well, this is how the song sounds, this chord, this chord. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I want to do with the bass. Do do do, do do do. Whoa, 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 whoa. The song, and the reason I get pushback on the simple musicality of the song is because the industry has simplified, has box cold cereal their music,
Yeah.
and it's fine. I want artists to play what they want to play, but the producer in me, for what I'm going to do, if you want me involved, then we're going to come in with the bass line. We're going to go for a key change. We're going to go for some modulation in the song, and we're going to bring in multiple harmonies. We're going to go for a bridge that isn't just, a slowed down chord progression. Listen, I have those songs too, and they're some of my favorite. Don't get me wrong, but it just I'm more interested in bringing musicality back to the world and those harmonies. ABBA's a perfect example. That entire disco era was not afraid to layer their songs with harmonies. And
Yeah.
79, that would have made me 4 years old when I'm popping in these 8 tracks in my sister's room while she's gone. Absolutely.
For those that don't know what an 8-track is, you
Oh,
had vinyl,
God,
and then you had this sort of larger than life cassette that was an 8-track, and you could put it. They actually made it for cars and for your stereos. And then I think it wasn't that popular. I don't know what happened to it. I'd have to find a musicologist who could tell the history of that. But then they went to cassette, and cassette was obviously a more of a sure bet because it was much more accessible and easy um, to
yeah.
get. But
Thanks for reminding me. I gotta inform the audience sometimes. You're 100%. What's he talking about? Yeah, it was uh it was this big blocky contraption that we would stick into a slot and it would play music and you didn't rewind very well and really cassette tapes the big improvement from 8 track to cassette tapes was that it did rewind very well and it's two-sided and you could flip it around and quickly get back and forth to songs. But yeah.
there's I was with a friend who obviously vaguely remembers 8 tracks or whatever, but I said I actually used to have one of these. It was like almost like a mini boombox, but instead of it being the boombox with the two speakers and your cassette and the radio and everything, which you would see the big ones. This one was this little yellow, which was for 8 tracks. And so we were trying to Google, and do all kinds of finding it on the internet, and we did find it. And I was like, "This is the thing that I'm talking about." And they were like, what the hell is that? Like it was just complete, surprise. But they existed, and it was almost like a Walkman for the 8-track or something, you could say. But
I'd like to do that.
one last point, I think that because I totally agree with you about in terms of producing and stuff. And a good example, like a big inspiration for me is somebody like Rick Rubin. And I remember hearing him talk about some of the artists he's worked with, and he was working with Johnny Cash on some of his iconic stuff that Johnny Cash did, and he kept slipping him the song "Hurt" from Nine Inch Nails, and Johnny was just like, yeah, not feeling it, not really, and kind of just, and he kept saying, "What do you think?" Whatever. So finally, obviously they made the song, and that was kind of his nudging or his pushing, which then I see something from the guy from Nine Inch Nails, Kirk, I don't remember his name now. Crap, sorry. Um, anyway, he then basically, when he heard Johnny Cash's version of his song, he's like, "That's not my song anymore." He basically stole my song, because the version was so powerful and so immense that it just transformed, and even the guy from Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, Trent.
Trent Reznor.
He was just like, "This is incredible," but pissed off because it was, he loved his version of the song. So again, I think, like you said, as a producer, you can transform these artists, not just leave them, and yes, they have their style and they have this, but a part of the job is to sort of take them to that sort of next level. Not a good producer, not sugarcoat it, not to cookie cut it, but to really like want them to just like take what they've created and just really amplify it into something else. It could still be an acoustic song or something very low mellow, but you're still taking it to that next level of what its potential, I guess, maybe is a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to trust a producer that way. Like I opened up with, I've literally been listening to music playing in my head every day since I was born. It never ever goes away. It's how I come up with melodies. If you look at my pitch app, I'll scroll through a couple of hundred different melodies. It's just always going. This is where I store them on my phone to use them later. Um, so yeah, what I would say about that is what I was going to say is trust your producer, because you made this point a minute ago. We can't really follow what the music industry is doing right now. If you make a song right now today because you heard a song that's really popular and you're like, I can make a song like that, and you make that song, by the time we get it to the market, it's gone, you know, and it's not going to hit as well because that song set that bar. And so really our job is for your song to set that bar. If in fact you're an artist who wants to chart, a lot of artists just want to get their music out there. I mean, everybody wants to be successful, don't get me wrong, but that's what we're talking about. And we go back to the labels again. You know, that's why they're reaching out to AI, is because they need the revenue. If they're not churning out the hits, the label's not getting paid. And they have all these 360 deals with these artists, and the artists are really employees of the labels, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't mean to sound offensive, but you can even ask any mainstream artist nowadays. They'll tell you, yeah, I became with the $1 million advance and then the upfront costs and then how they put
Yeah.
me on tour. I'm in debt forever, I'll never get out from under this label. That's where a lot of artists are sitting right now. Mainstream artists that don't make as much money as you think. And
Yeah.
you asked a minute ago, do I have to get the artist permission to do the song? And I should have caught this. Not necessarily, only if the artist literally wrote the song. Because honestly, it's the label that owns this music now, Sean. It's not the artist.
Yeah.
An artist like Dolly Parton, because she wrote the song, the writer is always going to be protected in publishing. Uh, but also, let's take Tracy Chapman, for example. Are you familiar with Luke Combs recently did a cover of Tracy Chapman's song, Drive My Car?
No, but obviously I know the
Well, it's a,
song.
it's a great song, and Luke did a great job doing it. But I'm going to be honest with you, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to tell you how it works, and it might have worked in this case. What happens is the artist says, I only have 9 songs that I wrote this last time, and our contract is a minimum 10. And the label will say, well, we need a 10 song, so you're going to have to sing something else. They just go into their own publishing file, because they own all these songs from the artist, and they say, here's one. You want to
Pick
sing this
one.
one? Or yeah, and they'll send them a link. Just scroll through all of these. There's everything in our catalog that you can sing at no extra cost to any of us. And Luke, in that case, for example, Drive My Car, Tracy got paid really great because he made the song popular again, and she happened to be the writer. But a lot of times, if you're not on that split sheet, this is what I would say to a young artist, songwriter. If you're not on that split sheet, please don't expect a paycheck.
Yeah. I think there are some big artists who have covered um, maybe musicians who are not as known, or maybe they declined in popularity. And
Yes,
somebody who's a friend, and they said, you know what, I want to do a version of your song. And obviously
yes.
they give them permission, but they know they're getting all of the royalties, or 70, 80%. I don't, again, for sure. But that actually, they do that out of generosity because they know that's something that's going to support their friend or somebody who they're inspired by, or, just respect, which is a good thing.
That happens with your mainstream artists nowadays, and they'll do it in their concerts. If they get lucky, the label will agree. to let them cut one of their song's friends. But if I'm being honest with you, it's hard. It just depends on what the label wants. But yes, what you're describing was big in the 90s, and it's what I want to get back to. I'm Generation X. It's exactly what I want to get back to, which is Nirvana did this a lot. And in their MTV Unplugged, which was
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
their most successful record, they covered other bands that no one had ever heard of before. And guess what? All of those bands got paid through publishing because they were the underlying songwriter. So yeah, absolutely. And that's what we need to get back to. And I think if the major labels would just start opening up an independent side and let music flow into them, they wouldn't need AI and music would move forward and they would hear a whole bunch of new things. I mean, we do get the Chappelle Roans occasionally. The label will discover somebody really good and fascinating, but I'm telling you, we're just scratching the surface. There are so many amazing artists out there. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah. Let's jump to track three. This is Stevie Wonder, another powerhouse songwriter. This one's I Just Called to Say I Love You.
Yes, this is an iconic song. This is one of my favorite songs. Um, I believe every song is a love song. I haven't felt that way forever, but just kind of based on my philosophy of life and our purpose here on the School of Earth, I believe that every song is a love song, no matter what you hear, no matter the expression of it. This one here is, I mean, clearly, I chose this one because I won my fifth grade talent show performing this song with the keyboard on stage. Um, in this is the song I chose to perform at my talent show, and I was so nervous and my knees were shaking, and there were some kids that were laughing, but you know, the teachers in the audience in the cafeteria, our little stage was up on the cafeteria, and they just had the biggest smiles on their faces. I wore these sunglasses like Stevie Wonder in in,
Okay.
in my little talent show performance in the fifth grade, and I'm glad I did because I was able to look around and and see. I had practiced the song so well I knew it, and I was able to look around with my knees shaking and see the teachers smiling and start clapping, and some of the kids weren't paying attention. And but if it wasn't for those teachers and how excited they got that I was actually up there singing a song as a little 9 year old, it was great. And so I won the talent show with this song, which is why I picked it. But also, as you said, Stevie Wonder, his musicality, he's a music genius in my opinion. Again, another person who layers his music. His jazz chord progressions are just unheard of. I mean, if AI is going to learn from anybody, start learning from Stevie first. I would say it's Stevie and Elton. I mean, if you're going to learn from anyone, because they hear music, and when you get into music, I'll just tell you, when you get into the writing side of music and you start to structure songs and you put things together and you determine keys that your artist can sing in, right? Which is
Mhm.
a big deal. Your artist can't, which is always my thing. If you can't sing the song that you've written, there's a problem, which is always my problem. But when you get behind the scenes and you see the structure of music, and then you see someone like Stevie Wonder or Elton John, and the chords that they put together and the paths that they took to get there, and knowing that there was no AI anywhere to be found, is absolutely impressive. So yes, this was one of my favorite songs. I sing it all the time, still to this day. Shortly after this song was performed, however, uh, I grew up in inner city Houston, and we were below the poverty line. And if my dad wasn't a musician, I probably wouldn't have taken piano lessons. That's what he
Yeah.
wanted me to do. And my mom, I'm not judging here, but she suppressed his music. She, I don't ever feel like she ever suppressed mine, but music had been a problem in their marriage. And so there was just an interesting thing going on with music in my house growing up. And because we lived below the poverty line, I was the only kid, the only Hispanic kid in a 98% Hispanic community that went to piano lessons, and it was a little tough. And by the fifth grade, later that year, I quit taking piano lessons, and I had begged my parents for a long time to let me quit, and they wouldn't. But finally, in the fifth grade, I was just getting picked on so much, even after this talent show that I won. It just wasn't something that I believed I can do. And there's a great book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and
Yeah,
it
I know it.
talks about making agreements that you should or shouldn't when you're a kid. And I certainly, most certainly made an agreement that I couldn't play music, that music was dumb, that it wasn't something for me, and I shouldn't have made that agreement. Um, like I said, it probably saved my life ultimately, um, because I was able to reconnect with music as an adult, and all those wild oats are sowed and gone now.
Hmm.
But but yeah, so I quit piano lessons shortly later in the fifth grade because of the bullying, just because of being picked on. I was the only kid. We'd all be playing football or American football or baseball in the street. And I was the only kid that had to leave to go to piano lessons, and um, it's a regret of mine, but I don't spend a lot of time on regret.
No, but you also, looking back, it sounds like you do have to thank your father for doing that, for introducing you to that, or kind of encouraging you, supporting you in that, because I think I mean, looking now, I wish that I would have been able to. I have a guitar, and I can play two chords on it or something, and I like it, but I wish that I had been encouraged to do something like that as a kid, and to have a little bit of that, to get training, or to have a teacher that could do that. And it's still to this day, I think children go through the same kind of bullying with things like this. So I don't think it's like something that was in our time, because we're close in age. But I think this is something that probably still happens. But there's got to be that inner, and sometimes you don't want to be the parent to push them too hard, but at the same time, you do want to um, give them options. And I think art, anything with art, I personally think is a good option, because I think it's necessary for them to get more exposure, and art gives you exposure.
Yeah, and it's very therapeutic on top of that.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is that we always had a piano in the house. My dad, we always had instruments, guitars, accordions, pianos, bass, um, little percussion things to play with. My house was always full of instruments. So while I quit piano lessons, there was always a piano in my home growing up, and my dad played often, and I watched my dad play all the time, and I would sit down and play all the time, in the comfort of my own home where it was safe. But I stopped the piano lessons, and so the progression of my learning was arrested for a moment, and I wouldn't pick up piano again after I left my home. I wouldn't really play a piano again for about 20 years or so.
Wow. It's a good thing that you still remembered. It sounds, it's like riding a bike, huh?
In fact, it was. And when I would sit at the piano, maybe, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, I would think exactly that. I would just pray, and I would say, just help me to remember how to play this instrument so I can start letting this music out of my head.
Let's jump to track 4. This is George Strait. I can still make Cheyenne.
Yes. So I wanted to hit a bunch of genres. Again, it was difficult to narrow it down to 10 that were going to be the story of my life. So I wanted to hit songs that had meaning, had a diverse genre, and this one was that. I mean, I could have gone with a lot of different George Strait songs here. This one was hard to narrow down, even country. On the short list here was Willie Nelson, as well. My dad was a truck driver growing up in the early years of my childhood, and I would accompany him. And he was a truck driver in the state of Texas, and so all of this music of the Highwaymen, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash. I grew up with all of that music, and George is part of that list. The other reason I had to put George in there and not Willie, although it could have easily been, it was between Willie and George, I can tell you that.
Hmm.
Um, in Texas, George is considered a king, and he's referred to as King George. And maybe you can catch it or not. Behind my head, the hallway over there, there's a Texas flag right there, and next to it in the hallway leading to this soundstage is an American flag. And everywhere in the studio, artists hang. I have John Lennon, Roy Orbison. There's artists riddled throughout this entire studio. But in that hallway leading in, there's only one artist, and that's George Strait, and he's between the Texas and American flag. So shout out to George, big influence in my life. And really, if I'm being very, very honest, the shout out goes to a man named Dean Dillon, who is the writer of many of the number one hits that George performed were written by a man named Dean Dillon. And if I'm being honest, the Dean Dillon is my model career. I ask artists when they come in, tell me what career you look at that you say, if my career goes like that, my dream will come true. Like this, because everyone has different ideas. Not everybody wants to sell out arenas, believe it or not.
Hmm.
So Dean Dillon is mine, for example. I'm one of those persons, no interest in leaving Boulder City. I'm just fine. I don't need to do arena tours. Dean Dillon wrote country songs for George Strait and Toby Keith and Alan Jackson and Kenny Chesney, and he is just a powerhouse songwriter. He tells stories better than, I just model my writing after Dean Dillon's writing. So George was the performer, and Dean was really the genius behind these songs. This particular one, I Can Still Make Cheyenne. It's just another love song. This one's a breakup song, but I just love the story of it. And, I love that. I don't think that women know that men, all men have another home, another place they can go to. And it may be for me music, and it may be for you accounting, and for in this particular song it's rodeo. And it's just so interesting to me hearing this song when I was a young kid, 10, 12 years old. This among many other songs that George wrote and performed with Dean. But this one, I picked this one just because of that aspect to it, is because, you know, um, this cowboy calls his girlfriend and says, "Hey, I'll be back." And she's like, "You know what? You've been gone a long time. Don't worry about coming home." And without skipping a beat, he's like, "All right, I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted. I'm gotta go now because I can make the next circuit." So, he was about to come home to her. And just
Yeah.
as soon as just as soon as 1 minute he's coming home, the next second he's just fine going off to the next rodeo. And I'm not necessarily sure that it's a happy road all the time, but this is the way men are wired. I think people forget that we spent the last 100,000 years where men would leave the house and go into hunting parties and find food and be gone for weeks at a time, and women stayed home with the other in the village with the other women preparing and making sure life was sustainable, and the men were doing their thing. That is the history of the human race. The fact that we live in these houses together now and spend all of our time together and we do these little mundane, this is new to the human race, right? This is very, very new in relative terms. It's new. And I don't know, this song appeals to me just with that this cowboy has that draw in him.
Yeah. It's an interesting song. I'm not as familiar with George Strait. I know who he is, of course, and I've heard a couple of his songs, but not been to a lot of his music. So it's interesting when you talk about the guy who wrote this song in particular, but also has written so many songs for a lot of country artists that have big hits, and he obviously quite good songs that he writes. But I thought Um, this one in particular, it did definitely had an interesting kind of twist to it because I was listening, I was like, okay, I get it that they're breaking up. She's like, don't come. And then he's just like, okay, well, I can still make Cheyenne. And I didn't put the connection of I'm going because now I can actually still catch into the thing. So it was pretty cool to get the backstory on this one.
Yeah, and Dean Dillon wrote another famous song called "The Chair." You might be familiar with that one. I was going to do that one by George Strait also. The Chair. It's very storytelling,
Yeah,
and my
I know that
music
one.
is that. It's very storytelling. I want you to walk away with something, and I'll be honest too. Well, I don't tell many people. I guess I'm telling everybody now, but going back to the Mozart thing, my music, the instruments have lyrics too. There are the lyrics that I'm giving you, but also my instrumentation has words to it. And I just don't share those with anyone. I give you the words and let you put in the words for your instruments, but this is the way I write. And George in his band, the Ace in the Hole band, I believe they're called, did a very good job with that. This is another, if you listen to George, or you listen to specifically George Strait's Country, another musician, another band that really layered their music. I mean, the violins in this song go off and does their own things. Doesn't even stay with George. The bass player gets to do his own thing. Again, we're talking about a time where music had a lot in it, more than just some simple chord structures.
Do you think though that talk about country music as a genre and in particular, it's quite popular in America. But growing up in Texas, do you think it's kind of hard to not be influenced or at least have some sort of kind of connection with country music?
It's hard to avoid it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just hard to avoid. It's just hard to avoid it if you're coming out of Texas. I mean, you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan, ZZ Top, which we're going to get to in a minute. Um, the, no matter what your genre, if you're coming from Texas, you're going to have some country rhythms to it. I mean, it's hard to avoid. Even the Spanish. We're going to get to a Spanish song, and I grew up with Selena. My cousins went to school with Selena. It's hard to avoid those influences. I
Yeah.
wherever you're at, you're going to have your influences. Embrace them, learn them, and then expand into to others. I would say.
Well, I mean, Beyonce did a whole record kind of celebrating the genre. So I think it's hard. She's from Houston as well, isn't she?
Yeah, she's from Houston. As a matter of fact, she's from a neighboring community of ours, just across the road. I'll give you just a real quick. Well, you spent, if I recall, you spent some time in Louisiana too. But what's interesting about the South in the United States is that segregation was ended in 62 or 1963. But what a lot of people don't realize is that nobody lifted the boundaries of neighborhoods. No one went around saying, okay, well, now these neighborhoods have to integrate. It was just the schools that were integrated. The neighborhoods stayed, this railroad track from this highway and this railroad track is where the black people are, and this is where the Mexicans and Hispanics go, and this is the white neighborhood. That all stayed. And so
Right.
when I tell you that I grew up in a 98% Hispanic, I was born into a 98% Hispanic neighborhood, I was there. I mean, that was the Mexican neighborhood, and that those things stayed in the South, and they're kind of dissolving now. But when I was there, the neighborhoods were still the neighborhoods.
Yeah. I think that's I think there's certain places in the States that are gentrifying maybe because of they're running out of space. And so it's going with money then more than anything the culprit. But it's not community, it's not culture, um, which a lot of times, that's one of the things that keeps the heart of some of these neighborhoods together is that community and whatnot. So
Absolutely, I think it's a human trait to settle with your kind first. When I came out west to Las Vegas, I was shocked. I'm not trying to sound offensive, but I mean, I was literally shocked. I just I didn't notice in Denver if anybody, but my apartment complex that I moved into was just a mix of everybody, and I was really like, this is wild. I mean, it was a little shocking to me.
Let's jump into track five.
Okay.
This is a Mexican artist, if I'm not mistaken. Fito Olivares,
Yes, very good. Fito Olivares.
Olivares, and Juana la Cubana.
Juana la Cubana. This is a classic. If anybody knows this genre at all, this is a Tejano cumbia. The genre of this song is Tejano, and the style of the song specifically is a cumbia. Let me see if I can pull it up, and then it just kind of reminds me. Yes, and
And the title of the song means Joanna the Cuban girl.
yes, it means Jane. It means Jane the Cuban.
Jane
That's
the Cuban.
literally the translation. So Juana
Okay.
is Jane in Spanish. Juanita is Janey, right? So generally in Spanish, when you add the ito or the ita, it gives you the little version nickname. So like Juan is John. Juanito would be Johnny, the
Hmm.
English equivalent, right? So it's kind of nicknaming in the Spanish terms. So Juana la Cubana is Jane the Cuban. And what he's talking about in this song is to dance like her. So he's instructing the audience to, you got to dance like Juana la Cubana, Jane the Cuban girl.
Okay.
And this is, I mean, people will argue with me. This is definitely one of Fito's most iconic songs. I don't know what year this came out, probably late 70s. It's part of a Tejano genre that is very, very,
1985.
what's that?
1985.
85. Okay, great. They only look like they're in the 70s. But this is an iconic song, and it would set the stage for the Tejano music that we were going to hear in the 90s, coming from La Mafia and Selena and Emilio Navarra and a lot of artists that I grew up with. And to tell you what Tejano music is a Spanish version of country music. And just to give you a quick history lesson, the state of Texas used to be part of Mexico 100,
Hmm.
200, over 200 years ago. And they fought for their own independence. And the Americans that had settled in Texas became Texans. And the Mexicans that had always been in Texas were known as Tejanos. Tejano is the Spanish word for Texan. And this is what that genre is. So it's a Mexican form of country music. Now, of course,
Wow.
Latin people like to dance a lot more faster rhythms than traditional country. So this song's a little faster than what you would normally hear in country. And this particular style of song is called a cumbia.
Hmm.
And the reason I wanted to include a cumbia, I mean, again, it was hard to decide. I was going to throw in something from Selena because I do have connections to Selena and her family through my family, coming from the same part of Texas, which is Corpus Christi. And but I
Hmm.
went with this one because I still to this day listen to a lot of this music to get the rhythms and sounds out of the song. And when we get to my song at the end, you'll hear, I hope, you'll hear these influences in here. Um, at the time that I released my song, I didn't have any resources for horned instruments, and so I went with the synth sound. In the remixed version of my song, we definitely have the horns now, and I've already recorded the horns, and so coming out, probably after the first of the year, the remastered version, the remixed version of my song, which we'll listen to the end, will sound much more like this Vito Olivares song. And I like to say that my personal music is Tejano music with English lyrics, which would be the only difference. So I like those rhythms. I'm very tropical country. I like reggae, and so that's what you're going to hear in my song. So this guy in his band was playing in our house. If you were to walk into our house in the mid '80s, throughout the '90s, and even in the '70s, you would hear music. Music was always playing in my house, and my mother was very musical too, and she sings. I don't want to give the impression that she's not. It's just like I said, I don't know because I was a child and I wasn't there, but music had affected their marriage in the early years, and so it was something that was suppressed. So it was played with, but all we could do was play it. Don't ever, but don't. No one was allowed to talk about going into music. My sister wanted to be a big pop star, but no one was allowed to talk about going into music as a profession growing up in my house.
Wow. Okay. I really enjoyed checking out this song because I wasn't obviously familiar with it, but I like the sound and just the rhythm of it. It was definitely, I didn't realize that there's, again, naive on me to know that there was almost like this kind of Mexican country sort of music coming in. And this one particular you said is a cumbia, right? That's the
A
style.
cumbia, yeah,
Cumbia.
and it's gone now. I'm going to be honest with you. The genre, I think, peaked in the late 90s with Selena and Emilio and a couple of other big groups in that particular genre, which is always small.
Hmm.
Um, and it's gone. It's been taken over by what they call banda music, which is this stuff, but much faster paced and lots of instrumentation. Not exactly the same sound, in my opinion. My sound gets back to these roots, so I'm kind of happy to what would you call that, re
Like a
rebirth
Renaissance,
genre.
bring it back
Yeah, Renaissance. Yeah, revive. Thank you. That's the word. I'm looking forward to reviving this genre.
for sure. Um, let's get to track 6.
Okay.
This is Michael Jackson, Billie Jean.
Everybody knows this song. I mean, this isn't any wonder, but I had to put it on my song again. Another 1987 song. I think this one came out in 87, maybe 85. But I really needed to include something with Michael Jackson, not just because he was an influence of mine musically, but an influence of mine professionally and as a writer and everything else. Um, I I love Michael Jackson. I have a ton of respect for him. I don't know how other people feel about him. It doesn't matter to me. I was there. I grew up with him. I followed him. I mean, he was every bit as big as Taylor Swift is now. As in fact, I don't know that another artist has been as big as Michael, other than Taylor Swift. No one has ever brought the attention that Michael did. If you recall, I mean, we're talking about an artist where he would go and heads of state, prime ministers, kings, queens, presidents would sit online to meet Michael Jackson. I mean, it was just a popularity that was unheard of. And in this song, in this album, I chose this one specifically because I remember Michael saying once that he had simply put out to the universe that he wanted to he said out loud, I want to do a song with a cool bass line. And then he just waited for the bass line to come and he wrote this song. But it's such an iconic song. And I cannot tell you the excitement, the thrill, even now that it jars in me when I hear it. Um, sorry, it's just a powerful song. It brings a lot of I mean, it's not an emotional song, obviously, but it is for me because it just brings so much back. He was so big. But what I really love about this album is that Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, they were upset in the year before at the AMAs or the Grammys because they on the Off the Wall album, which was the album that came out before this one, which we also had in my house. Um, Pretty Young Thing was given an award. They wanted album of the year. They wanted record of the year, and it was given Pretty Young Thing. It was a single, and it was given R&B, and the sales for it was really hot. And but it was just awarded an R&B hit. Wasn't awarded, record of the year. And then of course they were nominated. It was nominated for album of the year. I think it got R&B album of the year. So anyway, Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson are really upset about being snubbed at the Grammys for the Off the Wall album and the Pretty Young Thing single. And so they go back into the studio after that, and they weren't snubbed. They came home with awards. They just didn't come home with the awards they wanted.
Right.
And they vowed that they were going to make an album that was going to sweep the Grammys and the AMAs. And they got to work on the Thriller album. And I mean, it just did just that. I mean, I know a lot of people are like big into Taylor Swift now, and with due credit, because she is amazing and what she's doing right now is incredible. But back then, um, they nailed it. And that Thriller album, I mean, it just crushed everything. And not until these Taylor Swift recent albums have any of those records ever been touched that Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones put together. I chose Thriller because I remember when the single came out. I remember when Thriller came out. I remember when the music video of Thriller came out. I mean, this was an event. Everybody stayed home to watch this music video. Literally, that's all you did. And if you didn't have MTV, you were calling your cousins or your neighbors or someone who had cable so you could watch this Thriller video. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so Michael was huge, iconic figure for me, and I went with Billie Jean on this one.
It's a listening to it again. I haven't heard the song in a while because I actually played Off the Wall in the car a couple of weeks ago, just almost the whole album, which I don't do a lot because I usually make playlists, but I've been kind of going back to like I want to hear the album because we had the cassette, same as you, of the Off the Wall, and then I got Thriller myself when it came out, and it was like for me, Prince and Michael Jackson were like these two dueling heroes, and the it was probably the biggest hit. And I think at the time I loved it, and then I kind of got off it, and I thought there was some other songs on there that I really preferred more. And I'm thinking about the lyrics to this about this kid's not mine and all that, which is interesting. And especially when you're probably about 10 and you don't really get what he's talking about that
Yep.
well. But listening to it again on your list, it was really good because I forgot about the song. I mean, not his lyrics, but like the music and the just the whole thing. And if I remember correctly, there was the Motown um show. I don't know if you remember this 50th anniversary or something like that. And there were all these artists like Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross and everybody. And it was really, I mean, I just remember being this impressionable kid and just loving a lot of the early Motown and all of that. And then Michael Jackson was on stage with the Jackson Five. He had the glove, the kind of loafers,
Yes.
and then I think it was Billie Jean. If it wasn't, it might have been a different one. I don't remember exactly for sure, 100%. But that's when he did his iconic moonwalk on stage, and the whole world erupted after that because it was just caught on camera and it was live. Um, and just an incredible performance of him, and just kind of just like you said, I think Thriller for sure just jumped so many genres. You have Eddie Van Halen on the record. They actually just mix so much. Vincent Price, I think his voice is on Thriller.
Paul McCartney.
Paul
Paul
McCartney,
McCartney's
of course.
in the record,
Yeah.
you know.
So they just threw everything, but still kept true to Michael Jackson's voice and his style, and Quincy Jones producing, which I think Quincy Jones records I find amazing. Some of his early, and I like some of his '60s stuff, that he did like more jazz style and kind of that bebop. So it just I can see why this is just such an iconic. You can't really fault it or slag it off, to some extent. No.
And another reason I went with this one, because as a music producer now myself, there's another story to this song. This song particularly that I forget to mention is that the engineer for this song started engineering the song right away, right after it was recorded, and did a handful of tracks, demos. And he called Quincy and Michael in and with a dozen different variations of the mix. And he really liked mix two. And he's like, I think this is the mix. And so Quincy and Michael, they fiddled with it. And anyone who knows what I'm talking about, when you sit behind this desk and you start messing with the mix, you can go on for days. And producers have. They got over 99 mixes in before they finally just said, okay, enough. We need to decide on a mix. And what was funny is that even after doing 99 mixes in a 24-hour period, they went with mix number two. And that
Yeah.
engineer says, his lesson behind that was, you know, you're usually going to come up with your best mix, two, three, or four right in there. And so I remember that as a music producer myself. Hey, because you can, I mean, you can just get on variations of songs over and over again and then get lost in them. And so that's another reason that I went with Billie Jean because of that story. Mix two was the one they went with on this master.
Yeah, that's a great story behind that too. Um, let's jump to track 7.
Okay.
This is ZZ Top, Lagrange.
Lagrange, yes. So this song, if you don't know, is about a house of prostitution in a little town called LaGrange, Texas, that became famous when it got busted because all of the politicians and sheriff and was in on it. You know, they knew about this illegal house of prostitution. And
Mm.
this is by ZZ Top, which is one of my favorite rock bands. I put this one in here because when I
And they're
first got
local, they're natives, Texas as well. ZZ
native
Top,
to
aren't they?
Houston, yeah, native
Houston.
to Houston even, yeah, and not because they're native to Houston, but they were a big influence. I didn't really discover ZZ Top until after high school. I started working in the steel fabrication shop with a neighbor had gotten me a job there, and in this fabrication shop we listened to classic rock all day long. So again, this is another genre that I could have just thrown in so many things in here. Um, Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones was a close second. I went with ZZ Top because of the Houston, Texas angle, but also because it's a great song and their drummer is exceptional and they're just a classic, iconic band. And I wanted something to represent classic rock, the influences that it had on me, but could have been Stevie Ray Vaughan, which is another big influence. George Thorogood was another guy that I spent a lot of time like, man, how am I going to get this to 10 tracks, you know? But for my classic rock genre, which was a huge influence, in my late teens and early 20s. I went with this one, ZZ Top, LaGrange. Great song if you've never heard it before. It is a road trip classic rock song. Great drum line, great bass line. Everything's great about this song, and their voice, of course, is iconic too.
It's on one of my playlists, especially like a cardio playlist or something when I'm, trying to do like move if I'm going for walks, if I'm in the gym. I want, and this is always it's on there. There's like 3 ZZ Top songs that I have, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of their earlier. Obviously when MTV came out, I was obviously hugely influenced when you hear like Sharp Dressed Men and some of
Yep.
the songs like that from them that they obviously with the videos, and they were just that. I think, you know growing up, there was people in my family who were more on the heavy rock or rock side, but I got influenced by Kiss, by all these rock bands. But I remember just ZZ Top was, they were that kind of they did have this kind of swag, they were kind of their own thing and kind of just in their own lane doing their thing and got popular. They were just because the songs are so good. And it was really cool. But this one you picked, I probably didn't get the connection with the house of but I did like this just the whole style of the song and you said the drumming. I feel like the rhythm of this is so good. It's just the pace keeps me.
It is. It is. I mean, listen, the Rolling Stones are high, high, high on my list. I mean, I feel bad that they didn't make this spot. They didn't make my list, but ZZ Top, man, this is a classic rock song. I mean, just it hits hard and it's got this great guitar. It's nasty,
Yeah.
distorted. It's a good song.
Well, and I think I may have told you when we had our chat before, but obviously Houston is a big part of my life now because my sisters live in Houston. So, I've been there a few times recently, more so than just, from Louisiana, from New Orleans to Houston as a kid. But now it's like a big staple because of them there. So, a little shout out to my sisters, but who's still in Houston. But I'm getting to explore it more because obviously I don't know it as a city and stuff. But at the times that I've been there recently over the last 3 years, it's been interesting to see Houston from their side and a different lens, which is, it's pretty cool.
It's a big city. and my
Yeah.
family is still there, and we go there every so often to visit. And it is a huge metropolis. It just goes on in every direction forever. I can't even fathom how people move around it
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of freeways everywhere. That's what I know from, and
everywhere. It's like Southern California. I remember when I first went to Orange County for the first time, 12 million people in this 25-mile radius. It is busy. Everywhere you look is people, like you're never alone.
no.
Southern California, you're just never alone anywhere. Houston's become that. You're never alone. Everywhere you look, there's more people.
We get to track 8. This is John Lennon, Imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely wanted to have some, some European music in here, some English music, the English rock influence that I had over the years, David Bowie, um, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. I definitely wanted to get a Beatles song in here. The Beatles became an influence when I started making my own music. And I went with Imagine by John Lennon because in my own personal journey of the last 6 years or so in in finding myself and my spirituality and my philosophy and understanding our purpose here on the School of Earth, I just felt really compelled that this should be the song. I don't know. I think of John a lot. What's interesting to me, Sean, is that when you have a certain message, it's almost guaranteed you're not going to get very far. It's almost like the material world will let you sing about whatever you want to sing about, so long as you're not singing about peace. And if you sing about peace, well, then, it's just a matter of time. Your days are numbered because this world doesn't really do peace all that well.
No.
So I wanted to go with this song. Just over on the wall across from me, I have posters of musicians. That's what we did in the 80s, in the 90s growing up. We got posters and we hung them up. In this studio, there's posters everywhere. Just everywhere. And when people walk in, it's the first thing they start looking at, all the different posters of artists, different shows over the years. And I have John Lennon right over the top of my monitor here, and it's a shot of him in New York City, and an older shot. I'd say within 5 years of his assassination, and he just has a look. And every time it's hard, I look at that poster, and he just has a look on his face that says, "Yeah, I know it's hard." And if you know the Beatles story, I mean, these guys were working every day of the year for 10 years before anybody knew their name. And
Yeah.
they just have to be like the Rolling Stones, just one of the hardest working bands of all time. And they were blessed to have their own spiritual journey as well in the process. And you look at later in their career, how they embraced the human experience and humility. And not just John, but George too. Probably those two primarily. They're big influences on me. Not only their music, but the way they live their life, and what they decided to do with all of that success, right?
Hmm.
Because that's really determines who you are, is what you do with the blessings you've been given. And I mean, we've seen plenty of artists just fly off the rails with success. And then you have John, who decided in later in his career, along with George, that they were just going to dedicate their music to peace. And the last album, if you follow John Lennon or watch some documentaries, I'm a music documentary junkie. I watch them all the time. I study an artist. I read their biographies. Kenny Chesney, a country artist, just came out with a biography. I'm gonna go get it. But what I was saying though is, if you follow John Lennon, that day that he was assassinated, he was meeting with the producer in the studio talking about his next album, and he was super excited about what he wanted to tell the world. And we'll never know.
Yeah. It's interesting because this I mean, obviously, I'm a big Beatles fan and John Lennon, and I really like a lot of his solo work as well.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember this is probably my mother, she's passed now, but this was her favorite song of, Imagine. And so, I hear it sometimes on the radio sporadically, and, it's on this and that playlist or whatever. But I think, the words are so simplistic, but it frightens people. It makes them uncomfortable to hear that this is something that people want. Um, and it's still very relevant today with what's going on in the world. So, um,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's important to mention too. The song is still as relevant as it was when it was released, I think in 81 or 80.
71.
Imagine came out in 71. Wow, man. I don't, do I have any song in the 90s? Wow. Yeah, so it's, a lot of my influences came early, which makes sense because, they say that you're hardwired between the ages of 0 and 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
And your environment and your relationships are going to mold that person that's going to end up being your subconscious, and you're going to carry these things on. And lucky for me, I had these positive mu music influences, and I'm lucky. And I got to be honest with you, I was a bit of a hellion, and I went through this whole, you know, um, you know, rebellious part of my life and embraced inner city living. And I was in the rap culture. I was there when all these rap songs came out. And there's not any rap on my playlist. There was a one that made the short go "See You When You Get There" by Coolio. But at the end of the day, I just decided to just not skip that part of my life, but I understood its process, right? The purpose of life on the school of earth is to perfect our love for one another. And that's accomplished through a series of challenges, situations, and relationships, all designed to make us love each other more. It doesn't always happen, don't get me wrong. A lot of times it just leads to hate, anger, and resentment, but still the goal is love. And so I just decided to definitely focus on that. That's where my music is focused, and that's where I ask our artists to be, in a place of that, in that place where we're going to collab with each other and we're going to make great music, and we're not in it for the money, we're in it for the
Yeah.
love.
And I echo that. And, that's where my heart is for 10 tracks. I want it to be a place where we celebrate music, we celebrate the stories behind the music, even if they, sometimes are painful. It's still the resilience in each one of us and how we are working hard to, continue to keep moving forward, but to have these fond memories that kind of got you to where you are today. So it sounds like, your music and your spiritual journey are almost have been walking together into where you're going and continue to go, which it sounds inspiring. And I think that's what I want personally for my own journey, as well as when I get to meet other guests and have them on as we share and celebrate music and celebrate the journey of life.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me on. I really love this experience, and I love putting these tracks together, and I was thinking about them obsessively.
I had one guest that said, "You know what? If we would have done it 2 weeks, if we do it in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have 10 more songs, 10 different songs I'm going to put on there for you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, then we maybe have a part two, so we can do that." Um, we come to track 9. This is from the film La La Land, Another Day of the Sun, of Sun.
Yeah, man, this was probably the hardest song to pick, this number 9 slot. I wanted to get a musical in there. And now that people know, okay, you were going for a musical, this is the one, they're probably going to be really upset with me. But let me tell you how it is. I was born singing and dancing, like I said in the beginning, and we loved music in my house, and we watched musicals. I, to this day, in my circle of friends and family, I'm the only person who knows musical. I raised my daughters and my kids with musicals. So all of my three kids, I have a son and two daughters, they know musicals, and they know that I know musicals. And my middle daughter, Abby, is a very accomplished dancer. She's kind of like my mini me. She knows musicals. My daughter, Natalie, plays guitar, and she's another little mini me, and she knows all of her musicals. I gotta tell you, the first musical I ever watched, remember seeing, besides The Wizard of Oz, which is musical, maybe not as traditional as people would say, but when we're talking about traditional musicals, the first one I remember is Fiddler on the Roof, and very, very difficult for me to not put a Fiddler on the Roof song in this playlist, but but I didn't, and so then I was like, okay, well, what's your favorite musical? I mean, probably the one that brings me the most joy of just smiling ear to ear the whole time, so silly and fun, is um, Hairspray, believe it or
Hmm.
not.
Yeah.
I love Hairspray and I love Tracy Rosenblatt, and I love the whole musical, and I love the opening number of that, which is Good Morning Baltimore. And if you're a musical fan, you know that there's a few golden rules in musicals, right? Rule number one is that the opening number has to be a hit. It has to be a smash. You can't open with a dud. You have to open with big and with a big number. And I've always loved Good Morning Baltimore for that. It's just a fun song. It was crafted really well. Lyrically, it's fun. I mean, I just have a ton of respect for it. Other honorable mentions, now I'm drawing blanks, but Suddenly Seymour. See, I know the songs and I have to think of the musicals. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Not Little Shop of Horrors. There it is. Little Shop of
Yeah.
Horrors. Suddenly Seymour is another favorite, but even the opening number of Little Shop of Horrors is a fantastic tune with some of the best drumming. I've always loved the drumming. Okay, so why did I go with La La Land? Well, La La Land was written by a person that from the town where I live right now in Boulder City, Nevada, and our little town has a ton of talented people, from athletes to artists to musicians. I mean, it's just we're just stocked with a lot of good talent in this town. I don't know why, or we're a town of about 16,000 people, a small little town, just outside of Las Vegas, separated by a 5 mile, not even 2 mile stretch of desert highway. We're just right over here, this little bedroom community, but it attracts a lot of smart people. And I went with this one partly because of that. And then the other reason is it's a big, huge number. And I love it. And then I do have a critique of it, as oddly as it sounds. I don't like the way this is mixed. And
Hmm.
that's part of the reason I threw it in too, because I am a music producer and I love this song and I love that musical. And when my son, who is macho construction dude, when he heard my 10 tracks, he's like, huh. He's like, I like the La La Land pick. He's like, didn't think you'd go with Another Day of Sun. I thought you'd go with the tap number. This is how well, see, that's my son who's this construction guy,
Yeah.
union. This is how well my families know music. And he's 20 something years old. We know musicals. And so even he was like, I would have gone with this one. This one was a really hard one, but I definitely wanted to get a musical. And I went with this one because of the bad mix. I just don't like the way it's mixed. I never have since the day it came out. I love this song. It is a unique, huge opening number with a lot of instrumentation. I think the lyrics to it are genius, brilliant. I love the participation in this number by everyone. It's a straight to Hollywood musical. I get it, so I'm cheating a little bit, but still, it's really well done. You got to admit, and it's hard to fund new musicals these days. I think Hollywood was probably more open than Broadway was on this one. Let's be honest. So I love this musical. I thought the mixing, the vocals, the opening vocals on this just need to be a little stronger. I mean, I just felt the mix on this one was tough. But I love this song and I wanted to get a musical. And because it was written by a fellow Boulder City writer, that's why I got this slot. But man, I could have gone in a lot of different directions. I'm a huge fan of musicals. Book of Mormon is another fantastic musical. Oh man. Anyway, that's my spiel on number 9.
I think there's going to have to be, a special episode. We did one already on the Bond films soundtracks,
Okay.
from the first Bond film to current, the last one with Daniel Craig. But there might be something that we have to do a top 10 of you know musicals.
Don't tease me, Sean. I can do a 10 tracks on musicals alone, and I will bring you some amazing, beautiful songs that I know people have never even heard before because they're stuck in these small, obscure musicals that never left Broadway or off Broadway, you know? There's some amazing, I could definitely do a 10 tracks on musicals only.
Wow. All right. Well, let's see. We might have to do this. I was thinking about because obviously I know a lot of musicals, not necessarily as the whole musical, but songs that were plucked out of the musicals and that other artists have done and put on their records and stuff. And interestingly, there's a version of a song called "Easy to Be Hard" by from Hair, and it
Hmm.
was done by Shirley Bassey, who's obviously did Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever and other. She's belted out quite a few other. She's very showy Vegas as well. Her sound, but she's from the UK originally. I think she's Welsh. But I remember the song on one of her early albums, which was called Something or something like that from the 70s. And she has the song Easy to Be Hard. And I was like, what's this song? So I started trying to find more about the song and then find out it was in the musical Hair, and then I'd heard you can get it on Spotify now, and I've heard the original from the soundtrack to Hair from I guess one of the recordings, and so it was quite interesting because I probably wouldn't have never picked that musical to just check out because oh you got to check out Hair, it's great, or the song's amazing. I would have never really unless somehow this just came to me through another channel. But I think there's so many others. I think probably some from Andrew Lloyd Webber and or this or that, which I probably wouldn't have been as intrigued by, but well, we could save that for maybe.
Yeah.
I'll give you some really bizarre ones, and you'll have all of these musicals that didn't get as much credit probably as they should have and deserved.
Reach out to me whenever you'd like. I'll start putting my own. I have an entire musicals playlist,
Okay.
so it'll be difficult to get that one down to 10 as well, but I would love to do that show too because there's a lot of great stories and I love telling stories through music. I mean, it's just what I'm attracted to. It's a peculiar thing. I mean, there was no reason for humans to develop music, right? We could communicate by other means, and we always have. And so the fact that we chose to tell stories through music, centuries and thousands of years ago, whenever it began, is part of the human experience. I don't think that humans can live on Earth without music. It's just
No,
me, I guess.
we got to have some sort of rhythm. Don, we get to your 10th track, and I'm pleased to tell you this is The Dream of Love. Now you've it's listed in Spotify as the I&I Music Studio, but now is this going to be labeled as yourself under your own name, or do you have a kind of an artist name that you're going to go by, or just I&I?
No, yeah, no. As far as my music goes, so we're a record label, a producer, and a music publisher. And but as far as the artist goes, I'm just going to keep it under I&I Music. I like it that way. I mean, Don Rodriguez is just me, and yeah, I'm a private person. I mean, I guess if I've had any hangups about doing all of this or any of this is that I'm afraid of being a star. I'm like, I don't want to be a star. I like behind the scenes. I'm a producer, and so it doesn't have to be me on any album covers. And I just like to make music, and I want to put it out there. And this particular song, "The Dream of Love," um, it's not the first song I wrote. It is the first song that I put out there, and it was a lot of work for me because I was a novice producer, and I had I had it in my mind that I needed in 2024 if I wanted to get out of the world I was in and pursue my passion for music that I needed to release a song in 2024. I'm a goal-oriented person. It's what makes me a good producer. the fact that I was in construction and real estate development for the last 20 years lends itself well. It might not sound like it does, but I'm the guy who kicks you in the butt and gets your 10 tracks finished so that we can get an album, we can get it uploaded. And the
Mhm.
first thing you learn about artists is that we all have 10 unfinished songs, 15, 20. If you let the artist just constantly be the artist, all we're going to do is go play our songs on open mic nights and hope you like them. Because to be honest with you, that's all that's really important to our artists is just that we play our music and somebody says, I love that. Um, but of course, the world requires money. And if you want to pursue this as a career, then you need a producer. And I think nowadays the producer role is falling off because so many artists can make their own music. But the problem nowadays isn't making music. That's the easy part. When I was a kid, it was hard to make music. But now
Yeah.
everyone has a studio in their closet. So the hard part is being heard. And because of that, I feel like we need to follow the system so that we have the highest likelihood of success. We, optimize our chances. And so that's my philosophy. And so as a producer, I bring that construction, real estate development background to that. So where I'm like, hey, we need vocals. The very first thing I did was lay out a spreadsheet about that showed lyrics, verses, bridge, instrumentals, and I just lay out the song. And then when an artist comes into the studio, we start filling in their spreadsheet and see where you have. Okay, you have 5 unfinished songs, 3 of them are close. These ones need work, and so I approach it that way because an artist needs help to be pushed to that finish line. And that's what I
Yeah.
do as a producer. Not only add into the music, I don't have to. If you play guitar and you want to come up here and play your song, that's fine. But we can also add to music. For the Dream of Love, I needed to get something out there because I figured, listen, if I don't have anything out there, how can I claim to be what I am? I'm proud of it. I cringe every time I listen to it because I've become so much better, and I have we have outsourced engineers now too, and people who master for us, so our music gets much better now. But I don't care about that. It represented a goal of mine. And if you look at the release date, it's December 31st, 2024. I mean, it just came right down to the wire of me getting this song out there. But I'm glad that I did because it set up 2025 exactly how I wanted it to be. And this year I've been doing a lot of work getting our label off the ground. This
Yeah.
is a download. I woke up in the middle of the night and walked over to my piano and started playing the song. And as I was playing it, what you hear now is not exactly what played in my head. That'll be coming soon. I just didn't have the resources and the experience and expertise to put it all together last year. This year I do, and we're working on it now. But as I was playing the song, Sean, it was amazing because I started crying. I could feel people behind me dancing. I could feel all of the energy of the song that I was hearing in my head. And I've never really felt anything like it. Again, it's not the first song I wrote. The first song I wrote was for my wife. The second song I wrote was for God. So this is down the line, but this is a download, and it's a good download, and that's all I can say about it. I mean, I didn't have much to do with this song other than transposing it. That's what I say that an artist does is all I need to do is what I hear here, get it out to you so you can hear it too. Because in here it sounds amazing, and my job is you can hear the amazing.
Yeah. No, and I really like the song. And I was saying to you, I didn't realize it was you singing. Just didn't know like how your, background with the songs you're creating. But I felt like your voice was great and the lyrics were great in what you was, the story you were saying. It's like there's a part where you say it's all a dream, and then I think there's a line a little bit after that where it's you all that I want, or it's just you I want, or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a song about for me, it's a song about perfection that just cannot be attained. It's a song about finding that thing that you love, and at that particular moment you just can't have it. And so, you can decide to wait, or I don't know. For me, everything's a love song. All I write are love songs. Even if
Mm,
it sounds like a heavy metal song, that is still the expulsion of anger is still the act of love.
yeah.
So I consider everything a love song. This is mine. I've got more coming, but thank you. Yeah, I don't consider myself a vocalist, so thank you for saying that I sound good. I consider myself to be a songwriter and a producer, and I do consider myself to be pretty darn good at both. But at the same time, I'm not a performer. I don't consider myself a vocalist, but if someone's going to hear my songs, I'm going to have to play them for them. So that's kind of what I do. I'll put them out there. A lot of my stuff is demo stuff. I would love to write for other artists, and I have songs and artists that we're signing now, and I've already let them know if you need songs, I've got songs. Most artists want to play their own stuff, and I respect that too. But it comes time. I have songs and I have ideas too, so we can put some stuff together. But that's what
Um,
we're doing over here.
Great. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So my email address is easy. It's admin, ADMIN at IANDIMUSIC.studio. That's admin at I&I Music Studio. You can email me there. You can go to our YouTube channel, which is the same, the I&I Music Studio, all spelled out. You can go to our website, which is also I&I Music Studio. Best way to get a hold of me is to email me if you're interested. I'll tell you one of the more popular things that I have is a publishing administration only contract. What that says is maybe you've already released your music. Maybe you have two records out there already. You just need help with somebody who can license your music or, contact. We send emails out and we're
Mhm.
always contacting other publishers, letting them know that we have other music, that we have music. And because you're with a label and a publisher, that end knows that you probably have your compositions in order and you have your copyrights in order, which we do. That's what my studio brings. It takes you from this gigging independent artist to somewhere where maybe we can make some money with your music by licensing it and getting it out there. Plus, you're under the label and a publisher, which automatically puts you in a different pile of music when our uploads go live. So those are the benefits, and that's what we're doing. We represent independent artists and independent artists only.
That's great. Don, thank you so much for being a guest. Really appreciate you sharing a lot of knowledge, and this is really interesting for me to get behind the scenes in the music production, music business because it is tough. Just being a fan and a little bit on the knowing some stuff. It's still fascinating just to kind of see how much is, especially if you are a young artist and want to get into the business that you need to know or need to see because not a lot of people are on your side to help you. Um, Sad to say. So it sounds interesting and incredible what you're trying to do for artists and to work with them and to let them have a different approach to working in the music business rather than the traditional model. So I wish you the best with that.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. And I'll work with anyone. It's a big new world. I can collab from anywhere. If you want to be recorded and you can get to Las Vegas, I'll record you. Auditions, I get a lot of those. So audition tapes can be sent to the admin email address. Just send me your YouTube stuff. And if you want to be on the label and if you want us to produce this, it requires an audition. But if you want to come in and use the studio and be on our label, we have the studio rates for that as well. So, but if you want me to produce you and you think your music's good, then send me your YouTube audition stuff to the admin email address. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me on. I really love your show. I really love the opportunity to go through my 10 tracks and kind of review my life and in those terms figure out what music would apply, what did I want to share. I really appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to come on.
Yeah, and then I wish you to what I say to all guests as we say goodbye to be kind, be humble, be love. And I wish that to you and much success in this new projects and everything you're doing.
I love that. I'm so glad I came on just for that. I had no idea that you did that, but yes, thank you. Same to you. Peace be on your journey. God bless.
Thank you.